I'm not gonna make the rendezvous. I've got a bounty hunter on me.
Which one is it?
It's 4LOM.
Well, okay. Then walk away briskly.
Oh yeah.
Come back here now.
Okay people, today let's take a quick look at the Medicom MAFEX Star Wars 4LOM, or 4LOM, or 4LOM. Mr. For Love of Money. That's what we're looking at today. I'm gonna start this review off by saying I probably shouldn't have pre-ordered this. In fact, when I got the payment request from Ami a couple weeks ago, I thought, they're making a 4LOM, I'd forgotten all about it. And honestly, I think my collection would have made me just as happy if it only had the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series 4LOM in it. I love this figure. I bought it twice. There was a Kenner repaint later down the road. But what it came down to is the bounty hunters are my favorite character designs from the original trilogy. Plus, I want Medicom to make more bounty hunters in MAFEX, I think. Let's get through this review, see how this turns out, and then I'll make definitive statements then. Because I also pulled down the original MAFEX C3PO to do comparisons after this is open, and getting that off the shelf brought back terrible, traumatic memories. Oh God. I was just trying to straighten the legs and the arm fell off. Get back on there. Please stay together. Come on, baby. Hold together. Looking at the package, it's your standard MAFEX packaging. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's dark. In this case, it's dark. Pretty promotional shot, logo. On the side, another promo image, more logos. On the back, guess what? More images, giving us a pretty pose and all the accessories, and I guess they're showing off the patina, the paint job, the sculpt. Logo, Project 1/6. I still don't understand that. MAFEX is 1/12 scale. And where's my scary bear, Medicom? I miss him. On the other side, logo, promo image. On the top, guess what? On the bottom, warning, choking hazard, small parts. Do not put import toys in your mouth. Don't put any toys in your mouth. It's not good. That warning in other languages, telephone numbers, unpiratable hologram sticker. Let's get this open. All right. After messing with this for a little bit, I take back what I said. I am glad I pre-ordered this. It still has a few fiddle spots, we'll get to that, but it just looks and feels great. My first thought when they announced this was that they only did 4LOM first because they could reuse a lot of parts of their C3PO. And that does make sense because the character design does use a lot of protocol parts. And getting my peepers out and comparing these side by side, they are so similar, but I don't think it's just straight across reuse. These double lines running horizontal here at the bottom of the foot, that's only on the left side. On the right side, it's just a single line. Here's the lines running across a little lower on the left side. Same thing on C3PO. The cylinder things on the outside of the knees. Those Phillips head screws up at the top of the thighs. Designs on the arms. These screwy things. The lines running up and down. The cylinders on the back of the arms. The cylinder on the front of the elbow. The dip downs on the crotch piece. Diagonal double lines on the outside of the right legs. And then horizontal double lines on the outside of the left legs. Yes, while the Force Awakens C3PO is better than the original MAFEX, it still has a problem here and there. And the reason I'm using the MAFEX Force Awakens C3PO is because while it shares a lot of parts with the original MAFEX C3PO, it is a little shorter. I think they took it out of the ab section. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, the first MAFEX is just a floppy mess. I've done some gluing and fixing since that original review, so it holds together if I put it in the display. But, oh, it's got to be leaning against a wall or something. Anyway, like I was saying, a lot of the parts very similar, as they should be. But then you get up close and you start noticing differences. See the wall thickness on the plastic above the ankle? On 4LOM, it's a little bit thinner to allow more range. Then you get above the knees. On C3PO, it just kind of angles down and back up. On 4LOM, it comes down and has a little extra sculpt work. You can see the slight difference on the outside of the hip pieces. In fact, this Phillips head screw up here sticks out further on C3PO than it does on 4LOM. It's a bit more flush. The circles on the shoulder pads are a different thickness. The cylinders in front of the elbows are different. You see a little bit more knobs on the C3PO. It's smooth on 4LOM. And then here on the back of the arm on C3PO, there's a gap. You can see through it. On 4LOM, it's part of the forearm. The engineering on the arm is different too. On C3PO, there's a slot on the front and a slot on the back. So when you bent the arm, they would either go up or down, depending on which way you were bending. On 4LOM, there's only a slot on the front. On the back, this piece is attached to the upper arm. It doesn't move at all. You bend, and it goes to 90, this slides forward, this back piece stays in place. So they simplified it with less moving parts, which is less chance of getting loose or falling apart. And then the torsos and the heads are obviously different. A big thing they did though was shorten the figure, and that may not be obvious from where the heads come up to. It's pretty much even. It's where the shoulders come up to. 4-LOM's is lower, so it makes him proportionately smaller, and it's the same with the hips. Here's C-3PO's comes across, it's a little bit higher than 4-LOM's, which I think was changed at the hips or crotch piece because the thigh pads come up to the same point. But I'm okay with that because it brings it closer to Black Series. It's still a little taller, which a lot of Medicom MAFEX figures are, but this is close enough to where I don't mind. It doesn't bug me if I were to put this on the shelf instead of this. And just to prove that point, here is the MAFEX Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett next to the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series Boba Fett. Slightly larger, but it still works in the display. Comparing the MAFEX and the Black Series side by side, very similar, but a lot of differences. One, the chest is much more squared off. It has broader shoulders, I think. The MAFEX also comes off more matte, which I always find more pleasing in an action figure, but this is also supposed to be metal, so there's the dirt down in the grooves, the patina to the armor, this lighter brown sticking out. It really helps those details pop. It's not quite as apparent on the Black Series. You can see it, it's definitely there, and it's nice for a Black Series figure, but it's kind of muddy. The MAFEX feels more aged, more earned, I guess I could say. Hasbro does bring that dirtiness down into that centerpiece, though. On this one, it's very clean, very silver. I think it comes down to the heads, though. I feel like Medicom nails the accuracy a bit better. See how they angled the prongs on the front and back a bit more than the Black Series? I could bring the head down a little bit, but it's not quite the same. What jumps out at me the most is the angry eyes, or I guess the angle right here. The Medicom has more of a furrowed brow, I guess you could call it, right here. So it causes a dip and it comes up further in the back. The Black Series is like that too, but it dips off quicker. There's a definite size difference. Using the side shot from Empire, I think MAFEX takes this one. Plus it has more flatness up here. The Hasbro dips down and around. This one goes out and then has more width. I'm not trying to shit talk the Black Series whatsoever. It is a good figure. I have enjoyed it over the years, but the more I hold on to this and mess around with it, well, I mean, for the price difference, this sure as hell better be better than this one, but you know what I mean. Also, remember the Hasbro eye gimmick where the head is actually green translucent plastic, so if you get the light just right behind it, it shines through the eyes. Medicom did the same thing. If you catch the light just right, it allows more light because there's more eye back here. You can see kind of a green glow to it. I do notice mine's missing some gold paint. There's a patch of just green there and a little there, whereas on this side, it's a bit more even. For engineering, we already talked about the change to the pistons on the elbow. It only works on the front, so you can straighten out this much and then bend up to 90. In fact, bringing the Black Series back in, that's how they did the back of the elbow on it too. But the thing I find fiddly, kind of frustrating, is straightening out the crotch piece right here, because it's obvious whenever you have it a little crooked and this is off to the side like this. And that all comes down to the hip dropping down, because it drops down super far. Not only that, there's a ball joint where the hip is connected to the leg behind this plate, so you can do this and back a little and out a little. That's to get movement out of a protocol droid hip. Again, I'm bringing out the Hasbro, and again, I'm not trying to put it down, but how it would work, this plate coming up like this, you try to go out, it runs into the hip, so boom. You can get a little because of the flexiness here, but you're not gonna get far. Here, you can drop it down and then go out. It looks awkward, but you get more movement. When I first saw it, I thought, well, I just had that same thing on Mandalorian Luke, and people commented that the newest Batman had it too. And so I thought, okay, that's a new joint that they're throwing in there. Wrong. MAFEX Force Awakens C-3PO also has a drop-down hip, doesn't go near as far, but it has a ball joint where the hip is attached. So it's not a new joint. It's not a new concept for MAFEX. It just doesn't get used as much, or they've been using it more again lately and tweaking it, evolving it to get more movement out of it. Also, because of how that joint is set up, and they've taken some out of the crotch piece, whenever you crunch, the ab piece goes down. Watch what it does to the legs. It kind of pushes them together, pushes them forward. So you need to pick the upper half pose first and then work around it with the legs, because you push the legs up and boom, it kind of pushes the abs back up. Since we're talking articulation, there is a dumbbell joint at the neck with a ball joint at the bottom, but it's a big noggin with a collar piece coming up. So up some, down some. Very nice tilt for a droid. Zuckus, buzz. The shoulder pad is just a cap piece, and it kind of blocks from seeing what's going on up there. I think it's a swivel with a hinge coming out with another swivel on it, because you can rotate the arm all the way around and then it hinges out and then it swivels at the bicep. Elbow doesn't go down further than that. This is actually holding it in place, but you can bring the arm up to 90. Swivel hinge swivel at the wrist, so around and then hinges back and forth, but you can take that hinge, move it, go side to side, up and down, wherever you want to go. Dumbbell mid-torso, ball at the waist, crunches to about right there, arcs way back, got some tilt, rotation. We already talked about the hip extensively. There is a drop down, goes forward to here, and then way back, goes out, and then there is a ball joint where the hip hits the leg, where you can go out and forward and in and then rotate. Protocol knee only goes this far. Hinge at the ankle. Okay, here's another thing. They've still used the peg joint like the original C-3POs. So it hinges back to here, but you can push a little to get more. But if you go all the way, well, okay, the peg's still in there, but you're eventually gonna pull it out. Hinge forward still gets in the way, but the more you push, the further you can go when the pin comes out. And then front-facing pin for rocker. For accessories out of the package, there's 2 relaxed hands, then there's 2 grip hands, and then of course 2 trigger finger hands. Those are easy enough to pull off, and then because of the sprues, the holes are already the correct size to go right onto the wrist. Trigger finger hands means weapon, and of course he comes with the rifle he was holding in the movie. Nice silver dry brush to the whole thing, bringing out the details. Bit of pushing, a little bit of twisting, easy enough. No problem whatsoever to get into some battle stance. Can shoulder the rifle. He's not going to dip down and look down the sights, but that's not shabby for a protocol droid. I mean, a protocol droid-esque design. And then if you put the grip hand in, you can do the other iconic 4-LOM pose. Size-wise, 4-LOM stands at about 5 7/8 inches, which, like I said, is shorter than previous MAFEX droids. Here it is next to the MAFEX Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett and the Mandalorian IG-11 that I kinda half-ass converted into IG-88. I swapped out the hands, stole the gun, and the bandolier, put it on there, and called it good for now. Because we are in dire need of a proper IG-88. The only one we have is the Black Series, and it is terrible. This is the one I stole the parts off of. And yes, the MAFEX 4-LOM is taller than the Black Series 4-LOM, but again, I don't know. It's not enough to make a huge difference. I think it looks right at home with the rest of the Black Series bounty hunters. So at the end of the day, it is a fantastic figure. I just don't know if you need it unless you're a big 4-LOM fan. Don't get me wrong, it is an upgrade from the Black Series, but as I mentioned earlier, it better be for the price point. I don't feel like the difference that you pay really balances out the difference in the qualities, the difference in the paint job, the difference in the sculpt, the difference in the articulation. Again, it is better, but you're paying for that betterness, which is really the case for a lot of imports these days. The domestics have gotten a lot better with the photo reels and the updated articulation. Yeah, I get it. They're not import quality, but they're not import price either. What it comes down to is you get what you pay for. And if you're happy with what you have, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said at the first, this is great. And I'm happy to have it now that I've messed with it and everything. But with Medicom's price creep, while reducing the number of accessories, I talked about this on the Rewind just a couple of days ago. There's a couple of sets of hands and a gun. That's it. It's nice to have those options when the Black Series only has trigger finger and weapon holding hand. But it was $24.99. In fact, it may have been cheaper at the time. That was several years ago. Was it $19.99, $22? It was a third, if not a quarter after shipping of the price of this. Same time, I love this. And this is going on my main shelf. But Star Wars, even with its rocky road, its ups and downs, its roller coaster ride, is still my bread and butter. I love Marvel. I buy so much more of it these days. But when I get a good Star Wars figure or something I really, really want, oh man, it just warm fuzzy right here. Plus, like I said at the first, and I hate to say this, I wanted to support their bounty hunter push. Yeah, they did 4-LOM. They have shown Bosk, which already looks better than the Black Series version. The Black Series version is a bit stiff. It's a bit action figure-y, for lack of a better term. It's got the spread out legs. The MAFEX looks like it's going to be more natural feeling. So if I buy this, and I buy this, and other people are happy with it too, maybe they will finally give us that great IG-88 we've been looking for. That's the top of my list. But, you know me, I'll probably get the Dengar if they were to do one, and the Zuckuss. Even though those two characters, Black Series pretty much nailed. But I haven't seen an import Dengar or Zuckuss, so I have nothing to compare to in my head. I can imagine something way better, but will they do it? Probably. Will I be paying $100 for it? Probably. But that's me. You got to decide what you're going to do. That's all I got.